Good evening. An evening of healing, but not the kind you think when you hear the word healing. Not the negotiation room kind, not the analysis table kind. An evening of good, and I mean good in its spiritual sense. An evening of communing with good. Relationship for us tonight is not a battlefield to be won, not a project to be managed, but a place of communion where the presence of God is acknowledged and allowed to reveal itself. Now that may sound strange if you have been trained, as I was, to manage people with words, with reason, with stronger arguments and longer meetings. But let us try to understand that we really mean healing in its spiritual sense, a return to reality, to God, within consciousness. And I am going to say something at once that may surprise you. There is a way to begin dissolving the tension between you and another without a single conversation, without persuasion, without confrontation, without rehearsing the old grievances and perfecting the indictment. I did not know this for a long time, and the strange thing is that I tried everything else first. But by now I'm in a position to say this to you with a great deal of authority. The beginnings of healing do not lie in fixing a person. They lie in an inner return to God. Beautiful. The person you are trying to correct is not the point of entrance. The point of entrance is the kingdom within you. Now, before you misunderstand me, this is not avoidance. This is not the silence that punishes. And it is not spiritual window dressing to control an outcome. No, this is obedience to a higher method. Go into your closet, the Master said. Pray in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret rewardeth thee openly. That is not poetry for wall plaques. That is instruction. It means that when you close your eyes, you close the door on the person, the story, the scorecard, the future you fear. And in that quiet, something else assumes the government. We call it the Father within. He is closer to you than breathing, and nearer than hands and feet. And I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. Do you see the shift? We have been beginning where the problem appears, out there, in a face, in a tone of voice. And so we have kept the quarrel alive by judging it, naming it, arguing with it. But the governing intrigue, and I'm letting you in on the secret, is that relationship healing is not an outer event to be engineered. It is an inner communion to be discovered. When consciousness returns to presence, when judgment is withdrawn and will is yielded, the atmosphere changes at its root. Sometimes the words will later be given, and they will be few and soft and right. Sometimes nothing will need to be said at all, and yet the fruit appears openly. Now remember this, you will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. And that is where we begin tonight. Let us look at the strange trap that catches nearly all of us. We feel the tension. We say, we've got to talk this out. And at once we begin assembling our brief. We draft an opening statement. We rehearse lines in the shower. We catalog dates and quotes and moments. We decide what understanding they must arrive at before we will feel safe. We call this communication. And I did it too, many times. And each time I came with a case, the distance grew. Why? Because beneath the polite words was a verdict already rendered, and conversation became the delivery of sentence. Do you see? It was not communion. It was prosecution with a smile. Now I am going to interrupt myself right here and say something plain. Conversation is holy when it rises from peace. But conversation born of fear and judgment is an attempt to change appearances. It recruits memory as a witness. It parades evidence. It wraps itself in a robe of self-righteousness and calls it honesty. Judge not, that ye be not judged. Not as a moral maxim only, but as a law of consciousness. When we enter the field with judgment, we do not approach a brother. We approach an image we have carved, and we ask the living soul to bow to that image. They feel the pressure, and even if they cannot name it, they resist it. Beautifully inevitable. The rift widens. The diagnosis, then, is not that two people are at odds and must bring their stories into alignment. The real discord lies in a false sense of separation and the insistence of personal will. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. Two personal selves meet like flint on steel, and sparks fly, and we think more speech will quench the fire. But more of the same fuel only feeds it. If I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. The personal self that demands to be understood, to be vindicated, to control the outcome, that is the lie. And so, 1,000 words cannot make true what a false premise has begun. Here is the first reversal. Let the atmosphere in consciousness change, and if words are later needed, they will come from peace rather than reaction. Be still, and know that I am God. Go within, shut the door on the case, the exhibit list, the sentencing memo. Withdraw the verdict. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. In that stillness you will feel the softening, the breath slows, the heat in the face recedes, the heart unclenches. And then, without strain, either nothing needs to be said at all, and harmony begins to show itself in simple ways, or a sentence or two is given you, unforced, undefensive, without any secret demand for a return. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. Now remember this, judgment cannot produce reconciliation. Peace produces peace. And peace is not produced, it is revealed when will is yielded and presence is acknowledged. Now let us come to the core revelation, without which none of this will make sense, and none of it will bear fruit. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. That is not a line for theology shelves. That is a law of operation. In the moment of conflict, when the voice is sharp, when the memory is hot, when the case seems airtight, your personal will rises to take the field. And it says, I know what to say. I know how to fix this. No. No. If I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. It is the Father within that doeth the works. The government is on His shoulder, not on yours. And when you yield the shoulder, the weight lifts. Translate this straight into the living room and the office. You are not fixing a spouse. You are consenting to God's government where you stand. You are not straightening a parent's history. You are yielding your present fear into presence. You are not running a coworker through your tribunal. You are surrendering the gavel and turning to the inner judge of all the earth who doeth right. Do you see the reversal? Personal management relaxes. Spiritual government assumes. And I'm letting you in on the secret. When that yielding is real, there arrives, almost imperceptibly at first, a settling in the chest, a softening behind the eyes, a quiet that was not manufactured. That is the sign. That is the evidence that God is on the field. And I am going to interrupt myself to correct a very common mistake. This is not passivity. This is not being a doormat. I don't mean that you stand mute while wrong continues. I mean that you change masters. You stop serving the anxious self and you let the Father within issue the word or the silence, the no or the yes, the step forward or the boundary drawn. Right action will appear, without strain, without the aftertaste of self-justification, because it will be born of peace and not fear. Do you doubt it? Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. First the peace, then the rightness. First the inner order, then the outer step. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. Now remember this practical rule. You do not need to know how to make harmony. You do not need to know how to persuade, or which argument will land, or how to time the next talk. One thing alone you must achieve: the relinquishment of personal will long enough for the inner presence to be acknowledged. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, long enough to feel the unforced easing that says, "Be still and know that I am God." That stillness is not your accomplishment. It is the announcement of the one who does the works. When you have felt it, even briefly, stop there. Leave the person to God. Leave the sequence to God. And when you re-enter the room, or the call, or the day, go quietly, without display, with that peace tucked under your ribs. In its light, either the atmosphere will already have changed, or you will be given the simple word that fits like a key in a prepared lock. Your task is not to change a person, but to yield personal will to the Father within who does the works. Now let me show you the way into that inner sanctuary, so that this does not remain a beautiful idea, but becomes an act, quiet, secret, practical. Go within. Those are not merely pious words. Go within means precisely this: close the door on the person, close the door on the story, close the door on the future you fear or the outcome you crave. When I say close the door, I mean refuse entrance to the entire case. Texts, tones, dates, little looks, remembered sentences, predicted replies. The courtroom in your head, dismiss it. Court is adjourned. The judge has stepped down. The gallery is emptied. This is what no conversation means at the foundation. As much as you refrain from outer argument, you refuse inner argument. You stop cross-examining a brother or sister in the silence of your mind. Now for the how. Sit. Anywhere. A chair in the corner will do. Place both feet on the floor. Let the hands rest lightly, open. Allow the shoulders to soften. Let the jaw release. Feel the forehead smooth. Take a gentle breath, and another. Not to manufacture peace, but to give the body permission to stop announcing the alarm. And now, without strain, turn attention Godward. Not to an image outside, but to the presence that is closer than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. Be still and know that I am God. Do you notice that when you do not feed the next thought about them, the mind begins to lose its appetite to litigate? You are not forcing quiet. You are consenting to it. If the story tries to return, and it will, do not wrestle. Just turn again. Father, here I am. Where I am, God is. Where God is, I am. In a few seconds, sometimes in 5, there is the unforced easing, the slight settling, and you know. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. I'm going to interrupt myself to add a word about secrecy. Keep a finger on the lip inwardly. Do not announce what you are doing. Do not say, "I'm praying for you," as a veiled pressure. Do not seek credit for being the spiritual one. Go into thy closet, Shut the door, and pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret rewardeth thee openly. The open reward is harmony. The secret is yours to guard. Resist the impulse to break the silence with a corrective text, a clever hint, an "I hope you realize." Let the hush hold. When the presence is acknowledged, let it do the works. If you ask, "How long?" I answer, as long as it takes to feel even a thimbleful of peace. At first it may be 30 seconds, then a minute. Then it becomes available many times a day, ultimately at will. Meditation is something of an art that can be learned. Anyone and everyone can practice this turning. Now remember this: the healing begins the instant you close the inner door on the entire case against the other and turn toward presence. When that soft assurance arrives, stop. Leave the person to God. Rise quietly and re-enter your day with that peace tucked within. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. Now we come to the purification without which the sanctuary does not become a temple, but only a quiet room. Withdrawing judgment. Not a pretty phrase, a real act. What keeps the wound alive is not only what was said or done last week. It is the hidden conversation that keeps running when the house is silent. Do you know that conversation? You always. You never. How could you? After all I've done. It begins in the throat, but even when the lips are sealed, it continues inside and nails the other to yesterday. That is the mental verdict, and as long as it stands, we cannot see the living soul. We can only see our sentence pronounced again. I am going to interrupt myself to make a distinction that will save you from confusion. Discernment is holy. Condemnation is poison. Discernment is light upon the path that may say, "Not this way, not now. Step aside, draw a boundary, speak a no." It is guidance, and it arrives from peace. Condemnation is a claim upon identity. It says to a brother or a sister, "You are this failing. You are this story. You are fixed as I have named you." And that is a lie against God, because it asserts a selfhood apart from Him. "Judge not, that ye be not judged," is not merely a social courtesy. It is a law of being. When we condemn, we agree to see what God does not see, and in that agreement we blind our own eyes. Do you see? The barrier is not in them. It is in our verdict. What then when the old lines rise? You always, you never, as surely they will. Do not wrestle. Do not tug at them as if you could unthink them by force. Recognize them. Call them by their right name. Temptation. Temptation to accept a selfhood apart from God, both in yourself and in the other. And now, quietly, without drama, turn. Father, I will not bear false witness against thy child. Let the Christ be all I know here. That is all. Not many words, only the refusal to join the prosecution and the consent to presence. In that very moment there is often, almost at once, a tiny drop within, a soft unclenching that you did not perform. The breath eases, the stomach releases, the jaw forgets to hold. Be still and know that I am God. That stillness is the beginning of healing. Keep watch over this one thing. Each time you feel the inner gavel lifting, let it fall from your hand before it strikes. "Neither do I condemn thee" is not a line from a far country. It is the voice of the Father within you, offering you a way out of the old court. And when you yield to it, even for 5 seconds, the veil thins. Peace, not yet a river, perhaps only a cupful, but peace. And in that peace, you will notice that the picture of the other begins to loosen. The hard edges blur. There is room for Christ to be recognized where a case once stood. Now remember this. Judgment is the real barrier. Withdraw it, and you open the way for Christly recognition and peace. Leave them to God. Stay with the presence. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. Having laid down the gavel, do not sit staring at a blank space. The mind will try to rush back in with the old file. No, this is the hour for spiritual identification. If judgment is the veil, then what is behind it? Christ. Not a church word, not a religion, but the spiritual selfhood which is the only truth of you and of me. Behold that. Father, reveal what you are being where this appearance claims to be. That is our contemplative request. Not many words, only that. Reveal what you are being here. And I want to interrupt myself to spare you a confusion. This is not the approving of misbehavior. This is the refusal to make error a person. Sin, ignorance, fear. These are not identities. They are claims upon consciousness, masquerades, masks. If you glue the mask to a face and call it them, you have joined the lie. If you look past it, Father, reveal yourself. You have broken the agreement. Judge not after the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Righteous judgment is Christ recognition. It does not whitewash deeds. It refuses to cement a child of God into the role of offender. And from that refusal, guidance comes cleanly. And if a no must be spoken or a line drawn, it will be spoken without poison. Now, why does this work? Because when you stop meeting a mask, you stop feeding the mask. Masks need opposition for oxygen. They feed on your fear, on your indignation, on your rehearsed certainty about who the other is. But when you look through, not around, and in that very spot consent to see Christ, the mask cannot stand without your belief. Perfect love casteth out fear. And I don't mean a sentimental fondness. I mean the love that is recognition. I know the truth of you in God, and I refuse to worship your disguise. Do you notice, even now as we speak of it, the breath easing again? That easing is your sign that you have ceased to prop up the picture. Let me give you language you can actually use when the image rises. Father, reveal what you are being where this irritation parades. Where I would see a fault, let me behold thy Son. I can of mine own self do nothing. Show me thy Christ here. Or this. Where I am, God is. Where this one appears, Christ is. Not two, not apart, one life. Whisper it within. Then be still long enough to feel even a teaspoon of hush. In that hush you will often sense, without any outer proof yet, a rightness, as if the ground has leveled. That is presence answering your prayer in secret. And then the fruitage. Frequently, without a word from you, the tone shifts. The sarcasm forgets to land. The defensiveness cannot find its cue. Sometimes the next encounter arrives lighter for no good outer reason. And sometimes, even if the other holds their posture, you discover that you have no hook in you to be snagged by it. Both are healings, both are open rewards, because the atmosphere has been changed at the root. The Father within doeth the works. Now remember this, the only treatment that does not manipulate is Christ recognition. It neither pressures nor performs. It beholds. Healing occurs as you recognize the other's true identity in God, not as a problematic mortal to be corrected. Keep your seeing on that level. Keep your speech, if any is given, born of that level. And keep your secret with the Father. He that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. Now let us bring this into the hour when the heat rises, when the line is crossed, when the old reflex reaches for the tongue. Here is the secret method in real time, so plain you can carry it into a doorway, a hallway, a meeting, a kitchen sink. Pause. Inward turn. One sentence of truth. Silence. Not a lecture, not a rebuttal. Pause means one breath worth of non-doing. Inward turn means, in that very breath, you slip behind the forehead into your sanctuary, eyes open if you must, and acknowledge presence. One sentence of truth means you let a single, clean line rise within. Father, reveal thyself here. Or, I can of mine own self do nothing. Or, where I am, God is. And then silence. 5 seconds if you have them, 3 if you don't, but real, yielded silence, until the easing comes. Let words wait for peace. Now notice, the moment you stop defending, the mind begins to quiet. And when it quiets, something else speaks. It is not your cleverness. It is the Father within that doeth the works. You will feel it as a soft drop in the chest, a slackening of the jaw, a light behind the eyes. That is your sign. If it is not there yet, keep the finger on the lip within. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Better one more second of quiet than one fast sentence born of fear. The sarcastic comment flies across the table. The old self wants to swat it back, harder. Pause. Inward turn. Father, here I am. One sentence. I can of mine own self do nothing. Silence. In that hush, either nothing is given, and your gaze stays gentle and undefended, or a simple word arrives without edge. I hear you. Or even a soft change of subject, and the heat has no hook in you. Dignity is preserved because you did not descend into the contest. The cold shoulder meets you in the hallway. No eye, no nod. Notice the sting start its old speech. Pause. Inward turn. One sentence. Where this one appears, Christ is. Silence. From that stillness you may pass without forcing connection, and later a natural "good morning" will appear, free of plea or pressure. You have refused to feed the picture. You have kept your peace. The unfair accusation lands, loud, certain, wrong. The ancient lawyer in you reaches for exhibits. Pause. Inward turn. Judge not after the appearance. Silence. Now, if a boundary must be set, it will come unpoisoned. I'm not available for being spoken to like this. We can continue later. Or there may be no word at all, only a steady presence that does not buy the charge. Either way, you are governed, not reactive. Now remember this. In conflict, your power is the inward retreat into presence before you speak or act. 5 seconds of yielded silence are mightier than 5 minutes of rightness. Be still and know. Let the Father that seeth in secret prepare the field. And when the word is given, it will be few, soft, and right, or not needed at all. He rewardeth openly. Now let us widen the horizon. We have spoken of the kitchen and the hallway and the meeting room. What of the miles? What of the delay? What of the one you will not see this week or this month, or perhaps ever again in the body? Here is the quiet marvel. The kingdom of God is within you. And because God is not parceled by space, realization here is not confined to effect here. The Father that seeth in secret is not a local deity. He is omnipresence. Therefore, absent help, help without the call, without the meeting, without the announcement, is not only possible, it is natural. I did not know this at first, and the strange thing is I looked for mechanisms as if this were a kind of spiritual telegraph. No. Now I am in a position to say to you with authority born of much watching, there is no wire to lay. There is only presence to realize, and the atmosphere changes. Understand our aim, or you will miss the holiness of this. We are not sending thoughts. We are not projecting influence to bend a mind across town. That would be manipulation in religious clothing. We are resting in spiritual fact until fear in us dissolves and judgment is withdrawn. And in that clearing, harmony has room to appear as it will. Be still and know that I am God. Where you are, God is. Where they are, God is. Not two. One life revealing itself as right relation. So the text arrives, cold, barbed, or simply absent, and the old self reaches for reply or for a plan. Stop. Put the device down as if it were growing hot in your hand. Go within. Close the door on the entire story of why they are late, why they are wrong, why they must answer. Father, reveal thyself where this one is. I can of mine own self do nothing. Silence. 3 breaths, 5 seconds. Wait until the small easing comes. If the case rushes back, return again. Where this one appears, Christ is. And when the hush is given, leave it there. Do not outline how it must show. Do not measure. Rise and go about your day with the peace tucked under your ribs. Then watch, quietly, without peeking every 5 minutes, the open reward. An email arrives softer than the thread would predict. A call is returned with an apology you did not fish for. A third party, unprompted, clears the snarl. A schedule opens where there was no room. Or, and this is a higher sign though less dramatic, you meet the next encounter without a hook left in you, and because you do not bite, the quarrel cannot find its breath. My business relationships became more harmonious in just this fashion long before anyone knew I was praying, because the atmosphere from which events rose had been changed. Do not time it. Do not stage manage the form. Take no thought for the morrow. Acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he shall direct thy paths. The Father within chooses the appearing, whether as a softened tone, a right word, a closed door, or a path around. Your part is the secret consent. His is the open fruitage. Now remember this. Inner realization is not confined by distance. It changes the atmosphere from which outer events arise. Keep the work in the closet. Return to life without announcement, and let harmony, in its own wise way, reward you openly. Now there rises a very honest, very frightened question. But what if they never change? Am I supposed to just accept this? I am going to interrupt myself and answer plainly. Peace is not permission. It is clarity. It is not a shrug. It is sight. When the will is yielded and presence is acknowledged, you are not made passive. You are made lucid. And from that lucidity, the Father within doeth the works. Sometimes as a gentle word later, sometimes as a firm no now. Sometimes as a quiet closing of a door and a clean separation, but without hatred and without the itch to punish. The goal is not to force change. The goal is to live from peace. From that peace, right action appears. How do you know the difference? By the atmosphere inside. If you are hot, rushed, superior, or wounded, keep the finger on the lip. Pause. Inward turn. I can of mine own self do nothing. Be still and wait for the easing that is not self-made. When it comes, even a little, you will find that your word, if there is one, has lost its barb. Or your no, if there must be a no, settles like a stone at the bottom of a clear pool. It is steady. It does not splash. It does not need an audience. Boundaries born of panic require reinforcement. Boundaries born of peace stand unannounced. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. This preserves dignity, yours and theirs, because you refuse harm while also refusing to stamp a soul with hopelessness. Judge not after the appearance. Consider how the open reward may show itself from this inner government. Later, a talk is given you that is soft and direct, without a single prosecuting word, and it lands because it comes from clean air. Or the firm no arises, immediate and unadorned. I'm not available for this, and you step aside. Or a structure changes. You do not put yourself in the lane where harm repeats. Schedules, doors, and distances reform around peace. Or there is a clean separation. You bless and release, without a campaign, without collecting allies, without a closing argument. There is a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And now you are not guessing. You are governed. But what if they never change? Then your peace becomes unconditional instead of rented to their mood. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. You can walk by the same field and not be pricked because there is no hook left in you. You can implement right protections, legal, practical, relational, without injecting poison into your own bloodstream. Neither do I condemn thee, remains your inner posture, even as go and sin no more becomes the quiet pattern of your choices. You do not make a mask into a person. You do not make an error into identity. You do not make yourself into a victim of your own ungoverned will. Now remember this. We are not waiting on their personality to justify our peace. We are yielding to the Father within until peace is given, and we act from there. Sometimes it will be a word, sometimes a boundary, sometimes an ending. Always a refusal to hate. Keep the work in the secret place. When the hush is real, step as it directs. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly, and the first reward is that you are free before anyone else has moved an inch. Now we come to the daily art. Not a theory, not a mood, but an art that can be learned. And by now I am in a position to say this to you with a great deal of authority. Anyone and everyone can learn it. Meditation is not the property of mystics on a mountain. It is the normal way a son or daughter of God returns attention to the kingdom within. Some have a quick rhythm, some a slower one, just as with music. Some play by feel at once, others by steady practice. But the same song appears for all. Peace that is not our peace. Guidance that is not our cleverness. I don't mean that it leads to a life of sitting up on cloud nine. I mean that it trains the inner government until, in the very moment of need, you can touch stillness and be directed. Let me give you a simple schedule. Morning. Before the world rushes your door, 5 minutes in the closet of your own heart. Sit, feet on the floor, hands easy. One line of truth. Where I am, God is. Or, I can of mine own self do nothing. And then quiet, not to make something happen, but to yield. Night. Before the lights go out, 5 minutes again. Close the door on the day's persons and stories. Father, reveal thyself. Wait for even a thimbleful of ease. Keep a finger on the lip. No reporting, no announcing, no looking for applause. Thy Father, which seeth in secret, rewardeth thee openly. Now I'm going to interrupt myself and speak to the hours between. The day will offer you a dozen doorways back to the sanctuary. Micro-turns. A memory stings. A resentment wakes. A text pricks. A meeting tightens the jaw. Pause. Inward turn. One sentence of truth. Silence. 5 seconds, 3 seconds, even 1. Do you see? You are not building a cathedral each time. You are opening a window. The room may not flood with light yet, but the air freshens. If all you touch is 30 seconds of peace in the morning and 5 seconds here and there at noon, beautiful. That is the door opening. What will this steadiness produce? Proof by fruit. Fewer reactive episodes, and when you do stumble, quicker recovery, minutes instead of days. Less rehearsing of the old case. More spontaneous kindness that surprises even you. Decisions come cleaner, without aftertaste, and boundaries stand without needing a trumpet. Conversations lose their prosecuting tone. Silences lose their sulk. My supply began to increase without any difference in outer activity. So, too, your relational atmosphere begins to sweeten without campaigns. First a hint, then a practice, then a flash of illumination here and there, then daily, and ultimately many times a day, at will. Now remember this: consistency trains the inner sanctuary. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Stay your mind in brief, faithful turns until peace becomes accessible in the very moment it is needed. Keep it secret, keep it simple, keep it steady. Be still and know that I am God, and the Father that seeth in secret will reward you openly. In your words, in your pauses, in your choices, and in the quiet harmonies that begin to appear where once there was only argument. Come with me now into the closet of your own heart. Sit as you are, feet on the floor, hands easy, shoulders soft. Let the jaw release. Let the brow smooth. Take a gentle breath, and another. Not to manufacture peace, only to signal to body and mind that we are not going to fight tonight. We are going to yield. Be still and know that I am God. Now close the inner door. Release the name. Release the face. Release the last sentence they said and the next sentence you would say. Let the record drop. Set it down as you would set down a heavy bag you have carried too long. If the hand tries to snatch it back, smile within and set it down again. I can of mine own self do nothing. Feel what those words do to the strain behind the eyes. The Father within me doeth the works. We are not here to fix a person. We are here to acknowledge presence. Turn your attention not outward to an image, but inward to that which is closer than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. Whisper within if whisper you must. Father, here I am. Where I am, God is. Do you notice, even lightly, the first easing, as if a small weight loosened its knot in the chest? Do not chase it, do not measure it. Rest in it. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. I'm going to interrupt myself because the mind will try its tricks. A picture appears, a tone, a remembered slight. Do not wrestle. Name it temptation and let it pass. Return. Father, reveal thyself here. 3 seconds of hush. If it flies back again, return again, as simply as setting a child back in bed without scolding. Judge not after the appearance. Judge righteous judgment. Righteous judgment is this beholding. Where this one appears, Christ is. Not two, not apart, one life. Let the breath come and go of its own accord. You are not holding yourself together. You are letting yourself be held. If a line of truth wishes to rise, let it be few and clean. Be still. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. Then fall back into silence. No argument, no outline, no plan. Wait for the quiet drop, the unforced settling in the center. Even a thimbleful is holy. Now surrender. Father, I leave this relationship in thy keeping. Keep my mind stayed on thee. I refuse the gavel. I refuse the script. Lead me if a word is needed. Restrain me if silence is thy will. Thy will be done. Hold that a moment and let gratitude, not for outcomes but for presence, rise like warmth behind the sternum. Keep a finger on the lip. Do not plan the next move. Do not peek to see if anything has happened. Rise gently and return to your day or your night, carrying only this hush. And trust the promise without watching the clock. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. In tone, in timing, in boundaries, in the small mercies that appear where argument once grew, the fruit will show. Leave it to God. Rest in silent grace. Now we rise, and we walk back into the rooms of our life. And here is the way. Quietly. No announcement. No speeches about spirituality. No delicate superiority. I have prayed, you have not. Keep a finger on the lip. Let the world find you at the sink, at the keyboard, on the phone, doing what needs to be done, but with the inner door still on its hinges. If a tone has softened in you, do not point to it. Live it. Let your light so shine before men. Yes, but not by turning a spotlight upon yourself. Simply be. A simple word where you once would have argued. A silence where you once would have pressed. A kindness without audience. Thy Father which seeth in secret rewardeth thee openly. Set your expectation rightly, or you will go digging up the seed to see if it has sprouted. Sometimes harmony appears like a sudden clearing, so quick you almost laugh at how hard you had been holding. Sometimes it comes like dawn, so gently that you only notice, halfway through the morning, that it is no longer dark. Do not measure. Do not time it. Take no thought for the morrow. Your responsibility is to keep the inner posture, a soft yes to presence, a steady refusal to judge after the appearance. The open reward will come as it will, in forms wiser than your planet. I'm going to interrupt myself to spare you a common snare. The temptation will come to explain yourself, to testify at the wrong hour, to rehearse the private work aloud. Resist it. If a word is given you, it will be brief, kind, and born of peace, without a case attached. Yea, yea. Nay, nay. No piling up of exhibits. If a boundary is needed, let it stand unannounced. If an apology rises, let it be clean and small. I'm sorry. And then quiet. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Remember, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. Keep the practice secret and steady. Morning hush, evening hush, and micro-turns through the day. 5 seconds will do, if they are yielded seconds. Now remember this. Do the work in secret, return in quietness, and let harmony appear without personal display or strain. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. We place this relationship in God's hands, not to abandon it, but to release it from our management, so that the Christ may be revealed in the other and in us. We go back into our days with a gentle expectancy, not watching the clock, only watching the heart. Where I am, God is. Where they are, God is. Not two. One life unfolding. And we will wait, not idly, but in stillness, for the next unfoldment from within. When it is time, we will know. When a word is needed, it will be given. When a door must close or open, it will do so without strain. Until then, we walk softly. We keep our secret, and we give thanks for the peace already present. Be still, and know that I am God. He that seeth in secret rewardeth openly.